this virtual tour stop, we are standing in a 120-year-old stand of longleaf pine growing on a xeric upland sandhill site right outside of Hoffman, North Carolina. And the stand that you're seeing around you has actually recently been treated in a number of ways. In 2016, we had a mechanical removal of Midstory hardwoods, just kind of using conventional logging equipment, and then we actually chipped the hardwood material and sold it to the biomass market. We also followed that up with a prescribed burn that was conducted about a month ago by the North Carolina Forest Service. And I think they did an excellent job out here, and I'm going to show off some of their work here. But depending on the order that you're watching these videos, you've actually seen a portion of this stand that we did not do any treatments in. So that was the site where I showed you kind of the negative attributes of long-term fire suppression in a longleaf pine stand. And where we're standing now is our attempt to overcome some of those issues. So looking around, I don't know what the resolution of the camera is going to be like, but follow my hands down here. You can see these are pretty big stumps. These are those big Midstory hardwoods that came out, and Ava's going to help me point this stuff out. But as you can see, most of it sprouted back pretty rapidly. We didn't do any herbicide work in here, so most of these hardwoods, like most healthy oaks, are going to sprout right back once you cut them down. So our goal was to get them down, have them sprout back, and then get a fire in here when they were kind of at that susceptible size. So I think we've done all right. It's kind of hard to tell how well the fire did as far as really knocking back this sprout. I think we probably knocked some of it back, but at the same time, we didn't want to get the fire very hot in here, and that will have some consequences as far as controlling that oak. The reason we did not want to get the fire that hot in here, and this is something that you can find literature on this, it's been learned through trial and error here in the Sandhills of North Carolina as well. When you try to do one of these kind of restoration focus harvests where you come in and you take out the midstory in a long suppressed stand, and then you try to reintroduce fire, you can actually, if you burn it too hot right off the bat, you can kill that stand. And this is one of the reasons why that happens. So this is a mature longleaf pine. This one, it's almost flat topping. So this is a nice old tree, the kind that we would want to retain out here. And if you look at it, you say, oh yeah, you've burned off the ground layer. That's great. Maybe you'll start seeing some herbaceous ground cover develop in here. And we might. Unfortunately, I'm going to dig down. And I'm going to keep digging down. And I'm still just pulling up decayed turkey oak leaves and pine bark. And what I'm also pulling out of here is a lot of fine root that comes out of this longleaf pine. So what we're finding is that in these long suppressed longleaf pine stands, this tree, as the fuel starts to accumulate, or the duff starts to accumulate on this site, the fine roots actually start to approach, or start to actually grow up into that kind of mat layer, this layer of duff surrounding the tree. What we find is if you burn when it's too dry and if you burn too hot, oftentimes the fire will sit there and smolder around the base of these trees and put a lot of heat right on that root collar. And oftentimes what we see is when we do that, we come back a couple of years later and a lot of these big overstory trees that we're trying to keep in our restored stand are dead from that exposure to too much heat. So the burn that we did out here, the Forest Service personnel that did this, really top-notch crew. They watched the weather, they waited till we got just a little bit of rain, and then it dried out just enough that they thought they could maybe burn, maybe an inch of that material down. And the goal out here will be to just gradually keep bringing kind of low-intensity fire onto the site and slowly burn that duff layer down, give those roots an opportunity to retreat down into the sandy soil where they belong, and then we'll be in a position where we can maybe get a little bit more aggressive with our fire to better control the oak. Thinking long term, what are we going to have to do to control the oak in the meantime, because they presumably will keep sprouting and we don't want them to get big again. We might have to think about doing herbicide work. We might have to think about maybe doing a little bit more mechanical control in here. Honestly, at this point, I kind of have to see what the results are from this burn this summer to make that call. But this is an example of trying to move one of these stands towards a more open woodland structure for red cockaded woodpecker habitat restoration.